Hello everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of June the 19th, 2023. We have a really intense week ahead of us from so very many different perspectives. This is where both the blessings but also the challenges are going to be evolving with us, with our moods, with our understanding and sense of truth as we progress through the week. So the beginning of the week, the 19th, well, it is not a very easy energy, especially emotionally, psychologically, mental health wise, because we still have the ongoing square between the Sun and Neptune, and also that is the moment when the square is exact. Now, a day before we had the new moon in Gemini holding the same square, and really it is a T square because the Sun opposing the galactic center are both squaring this Neptune, and that is not an easy energy. But of course, I spoke about this in greater detail in the previous horoscope. But in this one, let us ignore a little bit. Let us take out the galactic center and let's just focus on the practicality of the Sun and Neptune square. Well, this is an energy of disillusionment. This is where we kind of, the Sun in Gemini, the power, but also the truth, the light within the mind, especially the lower mind. Our understanding of a situation, a contract, a conversation, what someone has been telling us, or our own vision, perception about various areas of life. And then there is Neptune and Pisces, which can represent our deepest feelings, our unconscious, our, for example, sense of morality, our spirituality, our principles, and these together energies together when they speak intention, well, this does provide a disillusionment because these two are in conflict. Either there is something that our minds may not be able to understand very clearly, hence the sun and the luminous quality to it, the light of our understanding basically. And in a physical sense, this can just represent the neurons flaring, or how should I say, sparking up the electric impulses in our brains. That is like a brainstorming energy. But Neptune is the veil, it is the illusion, it is also our ideal. So it's a little bit heavy, it is a little bit drowning, it is a little bit suffocating to actually have a sense of clarity, have a sense of truth, or have a sense of balance, because both of these are mutable signs and quite dual, both Pisces and Gemini in their own respect. But this energy ultimately determines us to look that much more deeper. And also it determines us to have patience, because whatever truth, clarity, decisions are needed for us to, hold in a very clear manner, they will come to us, because this is a short-term aspect, because, on the 21st, the sun is already in Cancer. But at the beginning of the week, we are still brainstorming. We're still trying to decide. We're still trying to look at, for example, Gemini, our options, our preferences, who it is that we are, publicly maybe, or in respect with a person. Gemini can represent the other. This can represent communication from family, especially siblings, cousins, or people who are almost like our equal, not necessarily in a romantic way. So, there is confusion there. There is a truth-seeking energy there. What is true, what is not true? Collectively speaking, well, it is very clear that it will be the media, certain news being presented in a certain way, and then other channels, TV channels, or social media or whatever, presenting it in perhaps the opposite way. So what is true, what is not true? And this aspect is also promises. If someone promises something, and that someone can even be an institution, it can be, an entity, of any kind, Gemini, uh, that promise may not exactly be the way we think it is or we envisage it to be. Now, this aspect doesn't really favor, um, too good to be true elements. This is where you get an email that you've won I don't know how much money. Well, chances are it's a scam, it's a fraud. When Neptune converses, in a tensionate way with either Mercury or with, the Sun or sometimes even Venus, because money, that's like suspicious. That is a bit fraudulent. That is where we really, really should take it with a pinch of salt. Now, apart from this, there is also a good side to this energy because we tend not to believe that which is way too unrealistic. Or someone comes to us with their greatest ideals and their beliefs that it's gonna turn out this way, that way. For example, professionally, business-wise, a project, a contract, a job, anything like that. And this is where you kind of know that I see the good intent in it, but chances are it's way too idealistic. So, it's not all that bad. We just need to apply both strong ration but also our deepest morality. Because, Sun in Gemini, and the Sun isn't alone in Gemini, Mercury's there, so it can come with so many offers, so very many communication, um, that which might be kind of atypical for us, and many times Gemini likes atypical, Gemini likes a challenge, but Neptune kind of, if it doesn't resonate with our deepest morality, with, who we are at the very core of our being, then chances are it's not all that worth this adventure. But it's not just this rather heavy energy at the beginning of the week. We also have something really, really beautiful, really wonderful, where Jupiter converses in a sextile with Saturn. Now, first about Saturn, because Saturn this week is already retrograde. At the very beginning of the week, it appears to be standing still, but it's already retrograde. It will slowly but surely go backwards. Of course, not in physical reality, but everyone knows that. And that is actually a good energy, because when Saturn is standing still, it's extremely shadowy, it's extremely intense. It can be a little bit ruthless, if that makes sense. And in the sign of Pisces, it's really, really about our greatest soul level truth and that which is seeded, planted, or maybe a permanent part of our unconscious, our deeper past, our memories, etc., etc., and everything that we have done in the past. For some, of course, depending on where this is in your personal chart, it can be real work, like sacrifice, but in Pisces it's more like the principle of sacrifice. It can be emotional, it can be spiritual, it can be simply tolerance, patience, compassion, embodying compassion, understanding, a loving attitude, anything like this for quite a long period of time, because Saturn is the Lord of Time. But when it goes retrograde, well, that is where clarity comes into play. This kind of provides a strong reality check for us to navigate the Neptune and Sun square, which is illusionary, which is, as I said, the veil is there and the mind cannot process all that well. And needless to say, next week, not this week, next week, Mercury is also going to be holding the same square, just that Mercury will very soon whiz out of that. But when Mercury will hold that square with Neptune, that might be when, we kind of know. Our mind may be tricked a little bit, or in confusion, let's say, or communication or whatever, but the sun held it before, so basically the light of who we are kind of knows already the truth, because we are after that square. So this is why it's really, really good. But going back to Jupiter and Saturn, well, Jupiter in Taurus, That is our true and authentic value. That is what we also embody. That is what we truly, but in the truest sense, need in a real sense. Because Jupiter can also be our faith, our aspirations, our sense of justice in Taurus, what we truly deserve. And what we truly deserve is ultimately subjective. It has to be subjective. Now, sextile with Saturn is where it's a tiny bit not as subjective, because either Saturn in Pisces, our unconscious, based on everything that we have lived, done, our history, and I repeat, not necessarily in a physical sense, how much I paid, what I did, what I gave, how many hours I worked. Although for some people this can be perfectly valid, but it's more like my attitude. Who was I in regard of this person situation? Was I compassionate, sacrificial in certain way? Did I embody, for example, the Christ consciousness or the principle of mercy? Because that can reverberate back very, very strongly at this time. So Saturn, the reality check of it, this is where our unconscious or the unconscious of other people, or simply history itself, but when I say history, our own personal history, reflects back at us what we truly deserve. And when I say history, it can be a lot of people from the past. Why? Saturn is the ruler of time. Pisces, in the sign of Pisces, time is so very relative, if you know what I mean. So there will be a lot of energies, people, communications, situations coming back from the past for us to look at it once again. This is also, hand in hand with the Sun and Neptune square, because Neptune is also in Pisces. Actually, it's the ruler of Pisces. So this is where physical reality might come with the confusing part. For example, we have too many options, or we do not have any options. And both of these situations might be a bit of an illusion, but then Jupiter and Saturn come with a certain kind of clarity, a certain kind of deeper knowledge, deeper truth than the mind, than the lower mind, the Gemini mind. This is where they come with, either karma or basically the past, especially what we've done in the past. Saturn has a voice now, has a way of expression. And dreams can also foretell what, because this is a sextile. If we are a person who usually communicates with the universe, who communicates with the self, then the sextile is on. So dreams might foretell us what we can truly expect, and if there's any confusion, misalignment, or maybe we are a victim of a lie, that lie can come from within, so you know what I mean. The dream can tell us the truer aspect, what we can actually expect or believe. In other sense, this is a really good alchemical aspect, because Saturn retrograde now, it's embodied, it's inward, it is very, very deeply personal, exactly our soul matrix is. And Jupiter in the sign of Taurus, again, it's subjective in nature, what we deserve and what we embody. What we deserve, ultimately, we have to embody, because those are the rules of, I don't want to say necessarily nature, but existence in a more philosophical sense. But Jupiter is the planet of philosophy. So that's a manifestation. We embody our true worth, but reflected back at us through the lens of the unconscious. Now, putting this aside, another really, really good energy that comes from this is healing. Jupiter in the sign of Taurus illuminates, so to speak, the healing qualities of plants, substances in plants, but not to be understood in a scientific way, even though Uranus in Taurus does point that there is a scientific side as well, in the sense that we can translate it into clear science. But let's get back to the non-scientific approach. The power within plants, the power within nature, living nature, and Saturn in the sign of Pisces is our blood chemistry. It is the water within us that is also solid, it is our hormones. It is, how certain liquid substances turn solid, like calcium gets into our bone, gets into our teeth, and etc. etc. And the sextile is ancient knowledge. The sextile is our own power to connect with the plants. So they can be profoundly healing, more healing than at any other time, just that we need to have a strong connection with the spirit of nature. Now, I just want to explain how this actually works, because it's not how it is presented in mother culture, that use sage for this and this and this sage tea and there it is, you're healed. To a certain degree, absolutely correct, because there is silver ions and all of that. Yes, the Uranian part, but this is where it's deeply spiritual. So we must look back at how certain great souls in humanity's past healed through the power of nature and plants. It is where they made an alliance with the spirit of the plant, and it was their pure intent to heal that activated the power in the plant. So the same plant in the hands of a true healer, a wise woman, or maybe a saint like Mary Magdalene is, if I'm not mistaken, the patron saint of healing herbs. It was her sheer devotion. It was her unconditional love to the source and the power it gave her that actually, how should I say, made the spirit of the plant bow before her purity. So, of course, for her, it was infinitely more healing than for anyone else. You know what I mean? In this sense, we can activate the healing inside every single plant. Of course, we do need the knowledge that this and this plant does this and this usually. But if we add to this our own spiritual energy, our own special alchemy, our own devotion, our own unconditional love, and make that alliance with the spirit of the plant, with the spirit of nature, that's when the healing is miraculous. And this even goes, Jupiter in the sign of Taurus for crystals. Crystals are really pieces of rock, and they do not do all that much in that sense. Electromagnetically, yes, but they cannot hold the miraculous power until you actually, connect with the spirit of the earth, of the rock itself. Not the rock that you're holding in your hand, but the spirit of all rocks. You do need an alliance. So people who are, for example, naturally very patient, naturally very caring for their, let's say, environment, etc., etc., well, the spirit of the plant, the spirit of the rock will have a much greater sympathy for that person, for that soul. So this is where, how do we activate crystals? Well, not really by charging them and putting intent into them and everything that the modern culture has. Yes, that is one modus operandi, but its effects are, not as, how should I say, intense as they could be, because we're just aggressing. We're ordering that piece of rock to execute our will. But if we connect through unconditional power, love, devotion, understanding, being truly part of all, that's when, the rock gains life. And not just that rock in your hand, but every rock. So this is also Jupiter in Taurus, teaching us, showing us through the sextile with Saturn, how to truly use the power of nature and how to truly embody our spiritual strength and powers in a higher level. No? But moving back, for progressing in the week, there is so much more energy at play here. One of them is Mars conjunct Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Leo. So this is where the heart is absolutely present. It is intense. It knows what it wants. Black Moon Lilith, it knows what it doesn't want, what it doesn't like, what doesn't resonate. This energy can get a tiny little bit, obsessive and even self-centered, egoistic. But as we progress in the week, there are saving graces there, which is a very, very hard aspect, which comes online around the 22nd of June, where this Mars and Lilith in the sign of Leo, very close to one another, are going to be squared by Uranus in the sign of Taurus. Now, Uranus is authenticity. It is truth. It is basically the true value that is possible in the now. It is for example, material situation. Well, your wants and needs and desires and all of that are absolutely fine, infinitely amplified by this Black Moon Lilith, because Black Moon Lilith, especially in the heart space, she knows she wants it, she knows why she wants it, and she wants it now, and in great measure, and to live it, and to truly immerse into it. But Uranus comes with on one hand, the surprise factor. But hold on a minute. Can you bear it? Are you, valuable enough? Are you strong enough? How is your social life? You know what I mean? Uranus is kind of forcing this energy to open its eyes and see everything else in life, if it's permissive of the passionate and, desire-oriented energy of this Mars and Black Moon Lilith conjunction, especially that at that time the moon is also conjunct, so, feelings. We're definitely going to be feeling our desires. And, Venus is also in the area. She's not conjunct yet. Well, according to, some astrological methods she is, but for me she isn't. But Venus just being there, and Venus will, she's in shadow because soon she will go retrograde. So she is already setting up the big, big themes, just touching on them, that we can expect during the upcoming Venus retrograde. Not time yet, of course, I'll have another video for that. So this is where it's really, really intense for the heart. Because Venus in the sign of Leo, she's also in a way like Black Moon Lilith, but more lighter version, a more loving version, with beauty, with, the actual sheer joy of living it. But we cannot ignore this Uranus square, because Uranus brings the awareness of everything that we still, for example, every condition that we still need to fulfill to embrace that energy, to get our desires, or it will simply answer why we cannot have our desires in the fashion or at the timing or at the intensity that we might desire. Now, in love, this is actually a tricky aspect, because Uranus square can represent, surprise, surprise, here it is, a lover, an attraction, and we cannot forget that Taurus is the five senses, including sensuality. And we cannot forget that Venus, the ruler of Taurus, is also in Leo, so she is adding to the energy of Leo. So for many people, it is without a shadow of a doubt romantic, sensual, sexual, all of these things. So someone might be actually knocking at the door, coincidences, bumping into, you know what I mean? There might be, our desires might very quickly come into play. They might very quickly, let's say, manifest in a certain way. But the square of it, the shock, the surprise, etc., etc. Okay, but we should not really, we should take it slowly, because we must not forget the upcoming Venus retrograde. Under the retrograde, let's see how we feel. Let's see how it works. Let's see what happens. Let's see how our heart reacts to it. Regardless of what this is. It can be a relationship, it can be, I don't know, contract, why not? It can be money, it can be value, it can be unexpected opportunities, it can be your spotlight, it can be so very many things, but of course embrace it, embody it, but give it time. Don't make it permanent. Don't sign the contract yet. Don't give your, yeah, I'm gonna be your boyfriend, girlfriend, or what. Give it time. No, use it, enjoy it, embody it, but don't look at it or think at it as something permanent and set in stone, especially because these two energies are fixed signs. So they want permanent, they want fixity, they love it. You know, they want, you know, like Taurus and Leo. It just falls out of the sky, the lucky moment, but it's big, and they have it for the rest of their lives, and this is where, like in the fairy tale, regardless if it's job or money or whatever. But that's not how life works. Sometimes, very rarely, yes, of course, but mostly it's not. So this is where we must be careful. Now, this Uranus and Mars square, ignoring the relationships and values and money and finances and contracts and all of that, this can be physically volatile, explosive energy. Mars is very comfortable in Leo, so this can be rage, this can be anger, this can be overdoing something, ego, as I said. You know, an ego outburst, but in a violent way. That will not get anyone in a good place. So we really, really need to be tempered. Even though shocks, surprises, some unpleasant surprises might come into play. Why? Because on the 21st before, the sun moves into Cancer and starts the Cancer solstice. Well, it is going to hold an in conjunction, a quincunx with Pluto. Pluto freshly retrograded back into Capricorn, and the demolishing aspect of it. So there is a big truth that might shock us, that might change the way we look at life, at things, at the person, at the contract, at the situation, etc. But it's a quincunx, so we have to use it as wisdom. We have to attribute the greater meaning to it, in the sense that, well, it can seem like, oh, the life is against me, because look, this person lied, this contract has so many flaws in it, some, you know, all of bad news, why not? Or I am not capable of this and that and that. Why did I fail? Why wasn't I, you know? Sometimes rejection, or sometimes in a sense where something that we worked on is not gonna complete yet, so kicks in the backside are just, you know, boosts, or like rocket launcher, because it won't launch us yet, but it will build up the momentum. And this is how we have to take this energy. Whatever truth might appear before us, we have to integrate it, we have to use it as a value, as a tactical advantage. So this is why I say that this Uranus and Mars and Black Moon Lilith and then the Moon square can be very, very impulsive, because the Sun and Pluto quincunx precedes it, so the news or something is triggered. So let us not make an impulsive move, an impulsive gesture due to misinterpretation, if you know what I mean. So the best way to use it is to really allow ourselves to clarify it, allow ourselves to, you know, integrate it as knowledge, as, you know, into the heart space. Look at the situation from the lens with the intelligence even of the heart. Let the heart be, the brain in this sense, and that will, take us much, much further. But when I say the heart, if the heart wants to punch someone, we need to the temperance within it. So don't act on that kind of impulse. But when we feel like punching someone, we know that we have to take a step back and disconnect from that person and look at the situation in a non-permissive manner anymore. The boundaries set in. You know what I mean? But on the world stage, externally, this might be, um, explosions, for example, acts of violence, unfortunately, fire hazards, earth movement, once again, because Uranus is in the sign of Taurus, and whenever it holds a tensionate aspect with Mars, especially Mars being powerful, magma, you know what I mean, tension, volcanic explosion. And with Neptune squaring the Sun at the very beginning of the week, it can also be under the sea, sorry. So submarine quake, like sea quake or tsunami or flooding. And flooding actually causing fire in the sense that it might, trigger some electronics, but in a larger sense, not that your personal situation. And also this might be because remember Eris, goddess of discord at 25 degrees of Aries, well, since Pluto moved back to Capricorn, they hold the square again. Protests, uprising, demanding rights, everyone fighting for their sovereignty. Uranus and Mars square totally support that because Uranus is the other rebel. And, the quincunx with Pluto, the Sun quincunx, what news hits the world or the collective or your local community or your country, politics and all of that. Because usually it's exaggerated, Sun and erratic Gemini. So this might trigger protests. This might trigger uprising. This might trigger acts of violence. And Saturn, especially at the beginning of the week, so shadowy. So, Saturn is the great malefic. That's all I can say here. So, it will trigger up the past. Especially Pisces is the long-term past. My nation, my ethnicity, what happened 200 years ago, what happened, all of this. Discrimination, victimhood. And Sedna has just moved back into the sign of Gemini. And there she's trying Ceres in the sign of Libra, justice. What is justice? Why is justice? Why isn't justice there? Jupiter in the sign of Taurus, justice has to be there. So all of this energy we need to take into consideration. And yet another element that I need to mention, and it's really, really important, everyone who has very high blood pressure or heart problems, be careful under the Uranus and Mars square in the sense that don't get angry, don't get overexcited in any way, shape and form. Don't do extreme sports. Don't do intense physical work. I'm not saying that you'll have a heart attack, but you won't be feeling very great, and that's why. You need to take things slowly. You need to calm yourself and cool yourself down. Now, let's speak of... Oh, and another really fantastic energy in the sky is Mercury, the ruler of Gemini. Mercury holds a sextile to Venus. Mercury holds a sextile to Mars as well. And that is absolutely beautiful for anyone who is working, with social media. Writer, public speech, anyone who shares information, communicates in a beautiful way, in a heartfelt way, releasing their creativity. For artists, sharing their work, inspirational words, helping anyone with words, with communication. Because, Mars in Leo is our creative center, working strongly. Venus, the beauty. Venus is the value of it. Venus is how we make other people feel. So this is a really, really good it's also a good aspect to visit people, places. Gemini is usually the shorter term travels, but in this day and age, that has a different expression than usually, because usually Gemini used to be when you go, for example, go to work, but your work is like a greater distance than, just walking around the block. How would you say that word? Like migrating to work or whatever, commuting. But even the astrological energies have changed so much, where long this plane travel and all of that used to be ruled by Sagittarius. But now, as times change, Sagittarius is really about space travel, the International Space Station, getting from one continent to the other, getting to the neighboring country, for example, or one place from in your own country from A to B, is already more ruled by Gemini and Mercury, if you know what I mean. So this can mean city breaks and even traveling by plane, but of quick and fast, not like days and stuff like that. A short-term travels. So visiting friends, visiting family, visiting loved ones is, or every who you love basically, or getting visited, is gonna create really beautiful moments here. And let's not forget the romantic aspect of it. The visitation goes hand in hand with this, the sextile. Um, then we have to move on to the Cancer solstice, where the solstice is very, very important, not just astrologically, but even ancient cultures, ancient civilizations who did not have astrology, for example, shamanic cultures, um, they knew that at this moment the veil between the worlds was that much thinner, and it was everything that happened was very symbolic because it started open the karmic cycle of the next 3 months for the next season. Now in my hemisphere it's the summer basically. So usually the aspects that are in the sky at a solstice do hint of whatever we can expect. And at the solstice, well, we have these Mercury sextiles. And it is absolutely wonderful because communication, honesty, heartfelt speech, words, sharing, and Gemini is also social media. Gemini is also non-verbal communication, however you want to communicate. Drawing, picture, painting, mimicry, anything goes here that has a really positive effect long term, including business wise, because Gemini is actually business, negotiations, speculations, getting customers, getting clients, employment, getting the right colleague, HR. So this is a really good aspect for your business as long as you keep the reality of the Uranus square and also the reality check of the Jupiter and Saturn sextile, where it cannot go against your deeper morality and what your soul wants. But a much, much, how should I even say this, beautiful and truly inspirational aspect is that Mars and Black Moon Lilith hold a trine with Chiron in the sign of Aries. That means, well, that's very easy to interpret. Expressing love heals, but it heals profoundly. It heals strongly. It heals like nothing else. The healing qualities of love. Now we can look at this in so very many ways because Venus will also hold this trine even when she'll be retrograde. So when Venus held, what did love do for us? What did love do for other people? Mars in Leo expressing love, and Venus in Leo in this conglomerate of energy. This is where it's selfless, because the sextile with Mercury is the sign of in Gemini, the sign of the other, the twin. Everyone, or maybe everything, if you look at it in a higher philosophical way, is actually our twin. an animal, an insect, the earth itself, but especially another soul. If we heal with love, with passion, with devotion, the higher qualities of Leo, another person, well, it also heals us, it also heals the world, and it also heals, the future. Because Aries, Chiron and Aries, the first breath, the new beginning. Perhaps the future is a child who is not born yet. And the reason why it's not born yet is because healing needs to take place. So, and Black Moon Lilith is also important in this configuration because to be a healer, to express love, to express that Leo kind of radiance takes courage. It takes a lot of courage. It takes sometimes a certain kind of craze where I don't care what my lower mind thinks or what that other person thinks. I'm gonna act with love. Like, for example, let me just give you a very small example. There is a disadvantaged person who you know, but they are not expressing this. They are not, but you know it. And the action, having a compassionate, gesture, projecting something loving towards them. There can be the fear that, well, won't I make this person feel even worse? Or how will they react? They might reject, they might get offended. But this is where Black Moon Lilith comes into play. But I have to do something. And this is where the Mercury sextile, there is a way to everything. And this is the higher qualities of Neptune. Empathy. You can find a way, or spirit can guide you to find a way how you actually get it right. The gesture, the love, express love. And that can heal that person so very intensely and deeply. And also it can elevate you outside of the lower ego, if you know what I mean. So there is a lot of healing energy this week. And as I said, whatever the healing is producing, well, it will reverberate back at Venus retrograde. This is one of the best qualities of this Venus retrograde, because all the, I want to say positivity, and I have to say it because it has to be positively charged. Love, compassion, expressing something, doing something, creating something for another person. Healing words, Mercury sextile Mars, Mercury sextiling Black Moon Lilith. Healing expression, healing gestures, they truly go. And for example, if you're a public speaker, if you're a poet, if you are a writer, if you can share something on the internet, on social media, well, do so in every way, shape, and form, and charge it with profound love and healing, because it can go a really long. And Saturn, Jupiter sextile Saturn, it is also in a way your spiritual duty. Regardless of what kind of activities you hold on social media, this is where use the power of love. But this is where it's not the Piscean love, it is the passionate, heartfelt Leo love. Like, let me just give you a silly analogy. Leo love is like when in South America there are those festivals, like the Rio de Janeiro and stuff like that. Well, the vibe of that, the energy of that, it is basically so much Leo, so heart-centered, that it's infectious. The frequency, even if you're a doomy, gloomy person, if you're like me, and you get there physically, the frequency of it will infect you and it will brainwash you, but in the best possible sense. So that is the energy that we are speaking about. Now, even more good news towards the end of the week. The sun, as soon as it enters Cancer and moves a little bit, for example, on the 23rd, it holds a trine with the South Node in the sign of Scorpio. This is where you embrace, you receive the rewards of everything, everyone you released under the, South Node's transit in the sign of Scorpio. All the toxicity, all the traumas healed, all the moments of honesty, Scorpio, all the moments when you acted with the greatest integrity, all the moments, Scorpio, when you rebirthed something within you, you helped another person reborn, when you used your access, because self notes sometimes mean what access do you have in your life. If you use that for a greater purpose, this is where the rewards are there and there to stay. And the sun in the sign of Cancer is your own nurturing qualities. This is where morally or in any other way you're like a parent to other people, to something, to a group, to a community. You nurture them. And I want to go back to Sedna Trining series. The nurture is definitely there, but the nurture is now through the mind. Loving information, loving facts, loving truth, loving justice, if that even makes sense. And yes, the sun tries. That means the sun sextiles the north node. Whatever you get back, whatever, this is where life confirms that you've done a really, really good job releasing or working with the scorpionic expression, which is very heavy. For example, if you are a psychotherapist, you will be so grateful for that impossible case you took on yourself, which no other specialist took on because it's so difficult. You worked with that, let's say, helpless person. You worked with that lost cause, with that lost case, and now you see them thrive, you see them prosper, and you get this reward. But when you were doing it, it was extraordinarily hard for you, and it reminded you all of your own wounds and traumas and everything. So this is the kind of energy. This is just one example. Where does this fall in your chart? Because there is blessing, emotional blessing, love, and rewards there. And South Node and Scorpio, transformation complete. The phoenix has arisen from the ashes. And what does the phoenix do? Push the North Node in Taurus to where it needs to be pushed. A massive progress. Now, going back to like the nitty gritty, Venus will also start holding a conjunction with Black Moon Lilith. Now this means that whatever love means, it needs to be embodied, it needs to be physical as well, because ultimately Lilith is a sexual primal energy. Love has to be felt physically. If physically is not there, is not working, then it's platonic love or any different love, but not partnership kind of love. Also, this is where some people love, but what they do really need in their lives is actually physical love, because that heals hormonally. But this will be a different theme under the upcoming Venus retrograde. Now, if that wasn't enough, Pallas Athena is gonna be squaring Uranus. So this is where surprising tactics, surprising moves. Let's not judge something at first glance. Let it reveal itself for what it truly is. And Pallas Athena holds a trine to Eris. That is where sovereignty. That is where, where there is a will, there is a way. Because Pallas Athena guarantees that. Vesta, asteroid Vesta conjuncts Sedna in the sign of Gemini freshly entered. There is sacredness in the mind. This tells us that if we make our lower mind beneficial, if we make the autopilot wanna achieve good, whatever good means to us, or something beneficial, or it acts with great empathy, because empathy of the mind is the speciality of Gemini. Why? Because empathy usually is not susceptible to the mind. It has deep feeling, and many times the mind cannot interpret it. Unless Gemini, that is the psychological role of Gemini, where it can actually give a shape and form and even a rational expression to what empathy is, and Gemini gestures make another person feel equal, whatever that means. Now, Juno also conjuncts the Sun. This is, and they trine the South Node in the sign of Scorpio, if you know what I mean. Juno is partnership, is the asteroid of partnership. And why does this matter? Because people can come back from the past. Scorpio, South Node, that's the past. Saturn in the sign of Pisces, that's the past. So people can emerge from the past to apologize, to have a different approach, to say something positive, or to settle the past for good. So this can be, partnerships, but where the partnerships actually comes from the past. In which shape and form is not known, because it can be a childhood friend. When you were a child, partnership was just like a friendship or whatever, and now that person comes back as an adult, as an experienced soul, and the partnership can truly begin. But this is just an example. This can mean so much more than partnership. Family issues, family toxicity. You broke away from a family member, XYZ, because they did that, and now either you are different, they are different, and there is a moment of, healing, release, acceptance, forgiveness, why not? So I would like to leave it at this. Thank you everyone for listening. I do hope that this horoscope was helpful, and wishing everyone a really, really blessed week. Until next time, bye for now.